Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are unpacking an absolute architectural heist. We're going to see exactly how 1980s developers forced a purely logical machine, the legendary Commodore 64, to think unpredictably. We'll be putting a painfully slow software routine right up against an incredibly fast hardware hack. Let's dive in.
Now, if you grew up with the Commodore 64, affectionately known in some vibrant computing communities as the DeBelle or Fatty, you absolutely remember those epic coffee break loading times. Loading a game from a cassette tape was an event. It was this ludicrously slow wait characterized by those hypnotic, blocky borders flashing on your screen. But once the software finally loaded, a deeper technical mystery began. Back in 1982, we were dealing with a 1 MHz CPU and a strict 64K RAM limit. In an environment that constrained, every single processor cycle is quite literally a matter of life and death for a game developer.
So here's the fundamental problem. Computers are fundamentally deterministic. They follow rigid logic and fixed memory maps to the letter. But when you're making a game, you desperately need unpredictability. When you want an alien enemy to move randomly, or you need shrapnel to scatter across the screen in chaotic patterns after an explosion, how do you actually do it? How do you get that randomness without a built-in hardware random command? The machine doesn't just know how to be spontaneous, you have to force it.
At first glance, the official documentation basically hands you a shortcut right in the system's read-only memory. This is method 1, the basic RND routine. The logic is burned directly into the machine at address hex E097 with a direct entry point at hex E098. It seems like the totally obvious choice, right? Just use the built-in code and move on. Well, actually, scratch that. For assembly programmers, this official method was a complete trap. And here is exactly why it was a trap. The Commodore 64 uses a MOS 6502 processor, and that chip completely lacks a hardware floating point unit. Because it doesn't have an FPU natively built in to handle decimal math, the basic ROM routine is forced to execute a grueling software simulation of complex floating point math. Remember, this routine was engineered to handle complex human mathematics for the basic programming language, not to instantly spit out a quick integer for a fast-moving sprite. It is agonizingly, painfully slow for real-time graphics. Let's look at the literal cost of this ROM routine in your code. It's staggering. This bloated process practically clobbers every single CPU register. Your accumulator, your X, and your Y registers are all wiped or altered just to spit out one single random value. It forces developers to frantically stash their precious variables into zero-page memory, like address hex 0004. Zero-page is the absolute fastest, most valuable real estate on the processor, and this routine just eats it up simply to survive execution. And after all that heavy lifting, you still have to go extract your random byte from internal floating point accumulator locations, typically around memory addresses hex 63, 64, or 8C. It's a total performance nightmare.
To a senior systems architect who needs raw speed for a 60 frames per second game, this basic ROM math was a massive speed trap. It crippled the processor. They needed a way to bypass algorithmic math entirely. And this immense frustration led them to look elsewhere on the motherboard. If the official software route was too sluggish, they just have to bend the hardware to their will. They were about to pull off an architectural heist.
The ultimate trick was realizing the Commodore 64 already had a lightning-fast hardware engine sitting right there. It just wasn't meant for math. It was meant for music. Enter the legendary MOS 6581 side chip, the sound interface device. Now, the side chip is famous for giving the C64 its incredible punchy audio, but developers realized, wait a minute, we can completely hijack this audio component and use it as a high-speed logic coprocessor.
So how exactly do they execute this heist in assembly code? The steps are beautifully simple and highly effective. First, you seed a non-zero frequency into the SID's voice 3 registers, specifically at addresses hex D40E and D40F. Then comes the magic. You write the hex value 80 to the voice 3 control register at hex D412. In binary, hex 80 is a 1 followed by 7 zeros. Setting that top bit tells the internal oscillator to stop making a clean musical tone and instead output the chaotic noise waveform. They effectively tricked the SID chip into generating a relentless, high-speed stream of high-frequency static.
And the extraction method? That's where the genius really shines. They bypassed software algorithms completely. Instead of doing heavy math, they literally turned on a broken radio station inside the hardware.
You see, the CD's internal noise oscillator is hardwired to be readable at memory address hex D41B. So whenever the CPU checks that address, it instantly receives whatever 8-bit value the physical static state happens to be generating at that exact microsecond. You're translating the physical static directly into an integer. No floating point math, no clobbered registers, just pure instant data. When we compare these two methods side by side, it definitively proves that the hardware hack is exponentially superior. On one side, you have method 1, the basic ROM at hex E097. It's a software mechanism. It's painfully slow, and it completely clobbers your CPU. On the other side, method 2, the SID chip at hex D41B. Execution is lightning fast, literally instant. It trades sluggish software loops for an instantaneous hardware read, making it the supreme choice for high-speed games and visual demos.
Let's talk about visualizing this raw speed. If you want to flood your screen with random characters, which is a classic visual test for any random number generator, you have an exact visible screen matrix of 40 columns by 25 rows. That equals exactly 1,000 characters. But assembly architects used a brilliant dirty trick here. They let their code loop run through a full 1024 bytes of memory instead of just 1,000. Why? Because prioritizing raw speed over exact boundaries is the name of the game.
Here is exactly how that works under the hood. The visible screen memory runs from hex 0400 to hex 0787, but calculating that exact cutoff boundary requires complex CPU math. Instead, they use a highly efficient assembly loop using the command cpx #8. This simple instruction tells the processor to start at page 4 and blast through memory until it hits page 8. By overshooting the visible screen by a few bytes, it avoids the complex boundary math entirely and fills the CRT monitor with a blistering, simmering field of randomized static instantly. It's the difference between carefully painting a canvas and just throwing a bucket of paint at it.
However, there's a catch. In a constrained 8-bit environment, absolutely nothing is free. You gain this blistering hardware speed, but it comes at a literal sonic cost. This hardware hack permanently occupies the third voice channel of the SID chip. If you're using Voice 3 to generate static so you can read random numbers, you cannot easily use Voice 3 for your game's regular musical score without causing audio artifacts or unintended sonic glitches. You are quite literally sacrificing your audio hardware for logic.
So how did developers solve this? To execute a perfect getaway, brilliant programmers found a way to mask the sonic cost. They would strategically trigger the random memory read exactly during an in-game explosion. Think about it for a second. If you fire a missile and it hits an enemy, you need to play an explosion sound effect anyway, which uses the noise waveform. So, hidden entirely inside the sound of the crash, the CPU rapidly reads hex D41B 50 times in a fraction of a second. It harvests those noise integers to calculate the shrapnel paths and enemy spawn points right while the noise waveform is completely masked by the explosion. Honestly, absolute genius.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. The developers of the 1980s looked at a sound synthesizer and saw a high-speed math coprocessor. They completely abandoned the official software rules and pulled off a logic heist right on the motherboard. So the next time you boot up a system, whether it's a retro console or a modern supercomputer, remember this trick and ask yourself, what rigid rules are we blindly following today that are just waiting for a clever architectural heist? What hardware are we underutilizing right now simply because we're only using it for its intended purpose? Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Had a bezel keyboard, heavy as a door, 64K of magic, and I still wanted more. I typed in my command line, feeling like a king, load star, comma 8, comma 1, and prayed it loads the thing. The screen was blue, the cursor bright, the tape was screaming through the night. Commodore 64, you're my pixel superstar with your chunky little graphics and your SID chip from afar. They're older than your granddad, that's for sure, but still we love them more and more. Commodore 64's the very best, even if they sometimes put us to the test. Their loading times are epic, it's true. A full cup of coffee and a something too. We wait and then wait some more, until finally we reach the game's open door. I had a bezel keyboard, heavy as a door, 64K of magic, and I still wanted more. I typed in my command line, feeling like a king. Load star, comma, 8, comma, 1, and prayed it loads the thing. The screen was blue, the cursor bright, the tape was screaming through the night. Commodore 64, you're my pixel superstar, with your chunky little graphics and your SID chip from afar. They're older than your granddad, that's for sure, but still we love them more and more. Commodore 64's the very best, even if they sometimes put us to the test. Their loading times are epic, it's true. A full cup of coffee and a little something too. We wait and then wait some more, until finally we reach the game's open door. I had a bezel keyboard, heavy as a door, 64K of magic, and I still wanted more.